I'm kind of wondering what the ultimate goal is. I mean, I think I know what it is, but I'm just wondering if we're actually going to attain it, and that the ultimate goal meaning, is this country or the world per se going to ever actually wean itself off of the use of coal and oil? And is that possible? And if it happens, do you have any idea maybe when?
Perfect. So I'm going to start that with Craig, and then I'm going to ask Colin to add on to it. I'll be happy to complement what Craig said.
Well, I think the short answer is not entirely. There's always going to be a role for natural gas or coal-fired electric generation, whatever it is, simply driven by the local economics and the local availability of resource. You know, that being said, okay, if you want to look at the hard facts related, say, in the U.S. to renewable energy, there are places not too far from here, you know, western Kansas, Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, the Buffalo Ridge area in Iowa, Minnesota, the Dakotas, where wind will generate at a cost which is comparable to or even less than coal and gas today. All right, so the key is to exploit to the maximum extent possible the resources that are available that can be used on an efficient basis to generate electricity. Now, there's a lot of artificial impediments. You know, we talked about transmission. I mean, the fact is that that building stuff locally helps, but we need a national transmission backbone grid that would allow you to move power literally from Montana to Pennsylvania or New York. It's all about efficiency and cost. So at the end of the day, yeah, we're going to do that. I put in a geothermal heating system in my home last year simply because it was the right thing to do economically, and it's also one of those egghead things that makes sense. But the point being that in that specific instance, that made sense economically. In the specific instance where you have wind or geothermal or solar, okay, that makes sense. We need to exploit it, and there's no reason technically that those resources cannot represent the majority of what we have on our grid serving electricity to the customer, okay? But that being said, it's not a universal thing. There's still going to be pockets where you don't have enough sun, you don't have enough wind. You're going to have to rely on something else in order to supply electricity for the users in those localities.
I think the answer boils down to this. How much and for how long are leaders and are their people willing to put up with a certain standard of living? No business in their right mind would make their entire business model on something where you know that the cost of your production is going to simply go up and up and up and up and up. And that's what you have when you have so many more people coming in the world and finite resources. And so the cost curve looks like this on a scarce resource. It just goes up, 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 and then it drops off precipitously. What creates that drop off? When people switch to a substitute. So, you know, I think the answer is going to be, where do we want to remain, or where does XYZ company want to remain globally competitive or not, and what standard of living do they want? And that's what's going to drive people over, because the costs we know are going to go up and up and up and up. And so the question then says, okay, when do we want to shift over to a more efficient production? Okay, some countries are going to have an advantage in renewable power to the United States. But we really have to look at ourselves as a country. Remember, in the next few years, we're no longer going to be the #1 economy in the world, nor the #2. We're going to be behind China and India. They are building with the newest technologies and the newest infrastructures. They have choices to make that they can make themselves structurally more cost competitive by being in infrastructure, as Janelle referred to earlier, that is long-term more cost efficient to have, i.e. more renewable energy than what we have here in the United States. The question we have in the United States is, how quickly do we want to respond and start being on the front end of investing in this new technology, or we simply globally will not be as competitive. That will impact our standard of living. And that's really going to be the driver. At the end of the day, I believe the market is ultimately efficient. We can talk about all the niceties and nice terms about sustainability all day long. It's just the bedrock principle of economics, the principle of scarcity. Infinite wants, finite resources, and economics is simply how we allocate those resources. That's what we're talking about here. So the choice is, do we want to be ahead of the curve, be highly market competitive, and lead the world, and therefore maintain our standard of living relative to the rest of the world, or do we want to be dragged kicking and screaming into it? And it's not unique to the United States. Every single country faces this thing, and it's the sum of the parts that's going to be the answer to your question. There will be leaders and there will be followers. And there are some, I would agree, should actually hold on. And I don't have a problem with us using non-renewable resources if we are using it as the basis to redefine a renewable economy. It's investing to change the way things. What I have a problem with is just continuing to use non-renewables and not investing in anything that's going to be different. Because then you get to the end of the line and you run out and you're, I mean this in the technical energy sense, screwed. You know, you got a real problem. Yeah, exactly. Same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Exactly.
I think most of you have heard me talk about the renewable resources as opposed to fossil resources. The fossil resource is really our savings account. If you continue to pay your house payment from your savings account, you're going to be out of business. So we have to look at our fossil energy resources as limited resource, savings account, and in that analogy, begin to develop income for other sources. And that's what I'm hearing my colleagues talk about.